Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So today I've got another teardown, but it's for a completely different reason than I've shown before. It's not tearing it down to sell for parts, it's actually because this guitar is so damaged that the body and neck are no longer useful. This is basically a cautionary tale on how not to ship a guitar, in addition to a teardown video, but we'll get more into that in a minute. So if you're looking at this guitar and you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's got that sort of traditional issue with the input jack or output jack where it's torn out of the wood fiber on the front of the body, that's a pretty common thing with SGs, especially these Epiphone SGs that I've seen. And I think it's probably because the washers around the jacks are just not very big, especially on these imported models. I actually kind of bought this guitar for that reason. I thought this was the only issue that it had, and I was going to see if I could repair this damage, patch the paint, and make this repair virtually invisible. The only problem was, I bought this from shopgoodwill.com, received it in a box that was obviously repurposed from another shipment, which is okay. I don't mind recycling boxes, I do it myself. But the box was very damaged at the bottom edge, right in this area, and also it had very little padding inside. So basically what they did was they wrapped the guitar in bubble wrap, single layer, all around the entire instrument, threw it in the box and let it bang around inside and did not immobilize the guitar inside the box. Now, I've showed you all how I like to ship guitars, and when I ship a guitar, I fill every square inch of that box with padding material so that it can't move once it's inside. That's really, really, really important for a Gibson style guitar with that tilted headstock, because the headstocks like to break. But that's not actually the issue that this guitar has. This guitar has broken on the neck joint right here, and it's really going to be hard for me to show you. I'll have to take a still photo of it. It's basically broken along the side, along the seam between the neck and the body, then through the neck, and then back down through the seam. So it's broken in multiple places, and it's just really, I don't think, recoverable. Maybe I'll save the body and neck for another project somewhere down the line, but what I want to do today is strip this guitar for all of its usable parts. So what is this thing? Well, it's a 2012 Epiphone SG Pro, and I don't know what the Pro means, but I know that it has some features that some don't, like these push-pull pots on the volumes, and I'm assuming that's for humbucker coil tapping or splitting or something like that. It's got pretty much standard Epiphone features other than that. It's got some pretty nice tuners on it, although these are corroded pretty bad. And I think the pickups are probably Pro pickups if I had to guess. So we'll take it apart and get into that. But just really quickly, I want to give props to Shop Goodwill. Even though they shipped this guitar really inadequately in my opinion, they actually stepped up to the plate. They not only submitted the claim to FedEx for me for the damage, but they also fully refunded my order. So now I've got the benefit of keeping this guitar, which they told me basically after a week, if FedEx hasn't contacted me, that I should just dispose of it. So I'm disposing of it. I'm just going to salvage the usable parts off of it and keep the shell for later. All right, so I think the first thing we're going to do in terms of taking this guitar apart is to remove the strings. I'm just going to loosen them, cut them. They're really, I don't know if you can see it, but there is a massive amount of corrosion on this guitar, strings included. I'm just going to cut the strings so that I don't have to like pull them back through the bridge. Alright, I'm going to salvage everything on this guitar, including the bushings that are in the body, because I think I might be able to use those later. And even though all of this hardware has massive corrosion, I think something like that would be salvageable. So the push-pull pots make the knobs really easy to remove, but I've got another tool here to help me get these other knobs off. I've also used the string trick before, where you wrap a string around the post and pull up. Any of those work well. Not too worried about the finish on this guitar, obviously. These, by the way, are just automotive trim pullers. I've got several different kinds of them. I'll post a link to these in my video description. One thing I've found about all Epiphone switch rings that I've taken off so far is that they are glued down with some kind of an adhesive. So they have to be persuaded to come off. And a razor blade slips under there just fine. All right, let's take these pickguard screws out. I'm going to go ahead and take the humbucker screws out first because I want the humbuckers to stay behind when I remove the pickguard. Now, I haven't pulled one of these SG pickguards before, but I assume that there's a little bit of a press fit around the bushings here, and it does appear that there is. So I'm going to try to coax this up with one of my pullers. Maybe I'll pull the bushings and do it that way, but this has to be interchangeable without doing that. Well, I don't want to break the pickguard, so I'm going to work on getting my puller set up for the bushings here. Okay, so maybe when I said that I had a puller for these bushings, you thought that I had a really fancy tool for that, but I actually don't. I have built tools for this purpose in the past that have been much more eloquent than this, but honestly, especially for this project, I'm going to try the easiest method, which is to take a little piece of plywood or wood, drill a hole that's the same size as the bushing or just fits over the edges, put a bolt in the bushing, and then grab a claw hammer and just start working it out. And usually comes out with no damage at all. Luckily that's going well on this, and I'm going to just keep pulling all four of these that way. And that frees up my pickguard. Alright, well that's got my bushings out. You know, like I said, I might not use that method on a really nice guitar, but especially on a project like this where all I really care about is the bushings, that method is perfect. Anyway, here comes the springs from the humbuckers. Okay, back plate next. Alright, well this looks standard. The back plate has like a shielding over the back of it. I'm not sure if that's a pro feature or not, but it's nice, and I can tell that the cavities are lined with shielding paint as well. So this has quick disconnects for the humbuckers, so that's nice. I'm just going to go ahead and work those loose. So those should now come out without any extra coaxing. At least I hope they do. I'm going to go ahead and wrap these ends as tight as I can so that they come out easily. Okay, well this looks like a 5-wire pickup. So it would be coil splittable, and it says ACP NHCB4 on the back. Not sure if that's a pro model or not, but I'll have to look that up. Now, even though the humbuckers themselves were quick disconnect, it looks like nothing else in here is, but I think I can get everything out in one piece if I just desolder this bridge wire. Or actually the bridge wire may come through now that I've pulled the, yeah, it does. Since I pulled the bushing out, I can even get this out too. So I think I'm ready to pull each of these. I just have to loosen the nuts on the front side. Man, the corrosion on these is unbelievable. Well, I've never had this happen before. What's going on now is that the nut is turning the entire center core of this jack, and it looks like that's just sort of press fit into the middle of the jack, so it's just all spinning, and there's really no good way to hold it, but let me see what I might be able to do. Okay, well that worked. I had to basically jam a set of needle nose pliers just because these are like conically shaped. That helped hold the jack, even though it wasn't really grabbing onto anything while I got that nut off of there. So everything came off in one piece. It looks like these are A and B pots. The push-pull pots are B 500Ks, and the tone pots are just regular A 500Ks. The switch looks like a pretty good little switch. It's Epiphone branded. It's not super high quality, but better than some. And the jack looks pretty good too, although I would never use this jack again because the rivet or whatever holds the centerpiece has failed inside there. All right, I'm gonna pull the strap buttons next. Well, now that I have access to this cavity here, I can see that some of that damage extends well into this humbucker cavity here. It's broken beside the original seam, which kind of proves that the glue joint between the neck and the body is often stronger than the wood itself. I think next, let's just take the tuners off and call this project done, but I will take some measurements here for you in a bit. I love how these Epiphones say limited edition custom shop on the back, and I just sort of imagine that the custom shop is like one guy at the factory standing at the end of the assembly line with a stamp. Okay, so no piece of this guitar is going to go unused, and so I'm going to take out these tuner bushings, and basically what I do for that is get a punch that's sized smaller than the hole in the headstock but larger than the hole in the bushing, and it should pop right out. So they just come out just like that. All right, well, what other facts can we learn about this husk here? I probably can tell you that the body is mahogany. It certainly looks that way, and it looks to be solid mahogany from the wood that I can see in the bushing holes and the wood that's chipped off the paint here on the neck. So I think that everything is mahogany in here. Like I said, shielded cavities. I think the frets are just sort of medium jumbo. They're not super tall, kind of wide. Definitely a plastic nut. Truss rod is really recessed in there. I'm not sure how far down it goes, but it probably acts somewhere around the first fret. This neck joint is very thin, which is just like every other SG I've ever seen. I don't know, weight-wise, it feels like just about any other SG I've ever felt, so it's pretty light. Paint is definitely a black poly of some sort. It's not any kind of a thin finish at all. It's very thick and looks like it's kind of durable. I could probably get 1 or 2 polishes out of it before I started to see any wear at all. And just based on the way it broke, it looks to be a base coat clear coat, because I've got a little piece of clear coat that's come up here. I really think I could have salvaged this jack. I think had I spent some time on it, I could have kind of cut in around it. I would have liked to have tried. Let's see if I can get some readings off of these pickups. Okay, well, half of this pickup is 4.2 ohms, and the other half is 4.13 kilo-ohms, not ohms. And so that makes this pickup about an 8.3, 8.4 kilo-ohm passive resistance. That's the bridge. Okay, neck humbucker, 3.83 K and 3.82 K. So that's in the neighborhood of 7.6, 7.7 kilo-ohms passive resistance on the neck. So the bridge is just a little bit hotter than the neck. Okay, well, this is not the video that I intended to do or wanted to do with this guitar to begin with, but at least it tells you something about the inner workings of a SG Pro from 2012. I've enjoyed making this video for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy watching these things, and if you do, be sure to leave me a comment or a like. Also, I really love it when you guys subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.